Okay, so I have the upper left quadrant here that is finished, and all 4 quadrants are going to be trimmed exactly the same. So right now we're going to trim this inside seam, this inside edge, and this inside edge. So this is the outer edge and this is the inner point. So on the inner point, I'm going to move this up and zoom in a little bit. We need to measure from the seam to the point on both sides and make sure that it's 3 5/8 inches, because this seam, it's really hard to tell like where it should end. So the easiest way is to measure from the seam down to the point of the inner seam. So I have it marked on my ruler. 3 5/8 inches is going to be the smaller measurement. So it's right here. So I'm going to come down to this notch side and place my ruler right where that seam is. And then I'm going to mark with my chalk 3 5/8 inches. Okay, so now I'm going to measure this side also and mark it with dark chalk. So here's the 3 5/8 point, and then I'm going to mark it right there on the edge. That way, before I trim either side, I know exactly where these 2 points should meet and where I'm going to trim. And now I'm going to measure 4 3/4 inches on this top edge. This is piece 6Z. So I've got it marked 4 3/4 right there. Get as close to this outer edge as I can where that notch is. And then I'm going to mark at the 0 point. So I've measured 4 3/4 on piece 6Z. And then on the inner point, I've measured 3 5/8 from the end of 1Z where it meets 2Z to 3 5/8 to the inner point, and then 3 5/8 from here to the inner point. So now I'm ready to trim. So I'm going to take my large ruler. Let me zoom back out. And I'm going to line it up with that exact point where those 2 spots meet at the 3 5/8. And then I'm going to check up there and make sure it's landing on my white chalk. Okay, so I've got my points lined up, and now I'm going to trim. So as you can see, I'm only cutting off a small amount, and they're not all going to be the same because there was a little bit of extra on each template. So now I'm going to rotate this, and this will end up being my horizontal inside seam. And I've already marked the spot on the inner corner, so I know that I'm going to go right to that edge right there, but I still need to mark the 4 3/4 on the end. Okay, so now I need to line up the 4 3/4 on this 6Z on this side, so where it meets that piece right there. So 4 3/4. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing. Line up the line on the 6Z, and then way down there, I'm going to make sure it hits that exact spot where that white and that black meet, where we already measured. Okay. So now we have a perfectly trimmed quadrant, and this needs to be done to all 4 quadrants. They're exactly the same. And then later, after we've made our quilt sandwich and we've added our batting and we've done our quilting, then we will go back and square up that outer edge. So you should still see your points on your outer edge, because we're not going to trim that until right before we put the binding on.